Hi. Oh my goodness. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Me too. Let's let people, trickle in here
Yeah,
before we're
do the
official,
thing.
but
Yeah.
we can be excited together. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I feel like it's been forever, but of course it has, because it's been forever since I've seen anyone.
Right, naturally. Naturally. I have my book people mug. I saw they were being quite good to you today. I love seeing
Yes.
that.
Yes, it was really exciting. I went and signed copies, and I was really thrilled to see how many copies they had. I was like, "Yee!"
It's pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the real deal.
Yeah. It's funny. That's where you and I met officially for the first time, was at Book People.
It was. It's a good place to have your, first real life meeting.
Yeah, right. It's a good place for a lot of things. Um, yeah.
Indeed, I'm jealous you're so close to it. As soon as we can travel, we will be in Austin, and in Book People.
Yes. It's just such a good bookstore. So much book people love. If y'all are in Austin or even in Texas, come check it out. It's worth it. It's worth the drive if you haven't already.
Yes, cosign. We literally registered for like gift cards to Book People on our wedding registry, and
That's awesome.
spent all of it and more.
Well, I think Danielle is on the live, and she's probably going to love that idea.
Highly recommend, Danielle.
Yeah, our wedding's in a few months, so we'll probably be putting Book People gift cards on our registry. Very
Do
smart.
it.
Very smart.
Do it. Okay, well, I'm sure people will trickle in and out, and this can be
Yeah.
casual. We are going to save it and post it later, so we'll jump in. Danielle says she doesn't have any more shelf space. Well,
It's
that can be
true.
remedied, but
It,
anyway.
I've kind
Hey,
of put a moratorium on bookshelf space. If you were to see our house, it's kind of obnoxious. So we have to
we
pare down if we
we
want more books.
understand the problem, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick official introduction for folks
Yeah.
who might not know one of us or both of us. And so just welcome to everybody who's here live and
Yeah.
who's watching this later. And I'm just so excited to be here today talking to Abby Robbins, who is the author of this new, wonderful, beautiful book, The Conscious Enneagram. And here's just a little bit about Abby. Abby Robbins is a certified Enneagram teacher through the Narrative Enneagram and a CIAYT yoga therapist.
Good
Uh,
work.
Thank you very much. I didn't practice that. They are the creator of the Conscious Enneagram website and social media, host of the Conscious Construction podcast, and founder of the Queer Enneagram. They've led in-person workshops across the country and at the Enneagram and Coffee Summit and the International Enneagram Association's global conference. And Abby lives in Austin, Texas, as we have established with their family. And I am Sarah Duet. I'm the social media manager for the Narrative Enneagram, and it is good to be with you all today. So, before we dive fully in, as promised, we're going to do a couple giveaways.
Yes.
So this is what we're going to give away. We're going to have two winners, and one is going to get a signed copy of the Conscious Enneagram from Abby, woo woo, and a free annual membership for the Narrative Enneagram community. And that's a $60 value normally, and you get monthly online Zoom gatherings with the community and discounts on programs and all sorts of other perks. So that's a great value. And then the second one is going to get also a signed book, of course, and then free admission to an upcoming program we have called Resilience and the Three Centers of Intelligence. And so normally that's just for member folks, but it'll be member folks and the winner of this giveaway. So we'll talk later about exactly how to enter that giveaway, so stay tuned. And if you win and you're already a member of T&E, you can gift it to a friend. So just FYI. Okay, let's do it. It is officially release day. I can't believe I get to talk to you on the day. I remember where I was when you told me that you were about to sign this contract. It's been a journey. Like, do you know how you're feeling today? Can you tell?
I think that's the perfect question. Like, not how am I feeling, but like, do you even know how you're feeling? It's honestly, it's been, I've had some like ups and downs like already. I woke up at like 5:30 this morning, which didn't used to be early for me, but since the pandemic, like I've been sleeping way later, and so 5:30 is like super early. And I like, got up and made coffee and let the dog out, and I was just kind of like, okay, I don't I don't have anything else to do. I'm just
Now what?
here twiddling my thumbs. Um, and then for anybody who follows my fiance Danielle on Instagram, we do a tarot card of the day each morning, and I'm kind of like her trusty sidekick. And she made me draw the card today, and uh, then I like almost ended up in tears because I didn't like the card.
Oh no.
I was like, no, this is attacking me personally. I don't like it. And so I think I started kind of like low, honestly. I mean, for a lot of reasons. Writing book is complicated, and putting your thoughts out there is hard. And then there's this sense of like, oh, I have to, this like imaginary pressure that I put on myself to like live up to what I wrote at all times. I told Danielle yesterday, I was like, I don't know that I've ever felt more like a fraud in my entire life.
Oh, interesting.
Um, and so it's been a lot of like examining stuff and having to get real with my capacity for things, especially as, you know, we are all hitting that pandemic wall.
Definitely.
So this morning has been very kind of quiet, kind of, I mean, a little sad, honestly. You know, feeling some grief and some really complicated emotions. And then we went, obviously, like there's a lot of things we have to do today, and went to book people, and you know, signing the books was kind of surreal. Like it
Yeah.
was a kind of strange experience, but like it felt good. But then it was like after that, I was like, you know, giving the guy the books, and he's putting them, you know.
I can. I lost you for a second, but you're back.
I have a screen time limit on my phone, and I've already reached it for the day, so that's what that was about.
Yeah, forget that today.
Yeah, that's not gonna get that. But so I was with this guy, and he was like, you know, we'll put the books on the shelves. You know, it was within the hour. They're not going to go up there immediately. And he's like, but I'll show you where they'll be. And he was like pointing them out, and then he was showing you where the Enneagram books are. And I feel like I didn't already know where the Enneagram books were.
Right.
But there was a woman standing there who was like asking for Beatrice Chestnut's book, and I was just standing right there, and then I was like, I feel like I have to tell you that I wrote an Enneagram book and you can get it.
That's
and
awesome.
I just sort of like scurried away, like, ah! But then like I looked over and I saw her like walking with it, and I was like, did I just sell a copy of my book? That's so exciting. And then I was just like, I was kind of like shaking after that. I was like, there's just so much involved with this, like that, like all of this work that's taken so much time, and there's really been this like quiet period in my life where like I did all this work, but like nobody else is really in touch with it. You know, it's like that feeling when you like tell a story and then you realize that like nobody you were with was listening, which is kind of a bummer. But then like today to have, you know, and in the last month too, as people have like gotten the books like for the launch team or things like that, and to have people like, to see people like interacting with it is It's really cool. And then just to see it like on the shelves, like we actually left Book People and like went and got lunch and went back so that like we could see it on the shelves. And that, I don't know, it's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very long answer to a very short question that you asked me.
No, but I think it's a very big question, and obviously there are so many. There's just so much that has gone into this, and I think that it's common. You hear other authors talk about like the release that is technically exciting, and all of these other things, and so there
Yeah.
can just kind of be this drop or this grief. I mean, it's the end of one part of it and the beginning
Yeah.
of another, so that all makes perfect sense to me. But let's let people who may not have the book yet or who may be thinking about getting it, let's let them know what makes it unique in the library of Enneagram literature, because it definitely is unique. And can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. You know, when I got into the Enneagram, like it's really one of the things that like jump started my personal growth. Like it changed my life. And kind of in the process of like getting really stoked on the Enneagram and talking about it with people and I am getting more involved in the community, right, of like people around
Right.
the world that are connected to this through this tool. I met a lot of people who like knew the Enneagram but like didn't care about the Enneagram. And like I found that to be so bizarre because like when this thing came into my life it was like earth shattering, right?
Right.
um and I realized that like it was earth shattering because like my life changed dramatically after like working with this tool. And what I came to realize is that not everybody who knows about the Enneagram knows how to use the Enneagram.
Mm-hmm.
um, or maybe like more aptly doesn't and not everybody who knows the Enneagram has the kind of other structures in place that make the Enneagram really useful. And as I realized that, I realized, well, like that's what we need is
Yeah.
for more people to know it's not just about your type. It's not just about figuring your type out. Like there is a whole process that is involved that leads to this transformation, this transformative experience. Um, and so, I kind of see my book as like Enneagram 2.0, right? Like, okay, you
Yeah.
your type, awesome. Here's what you do with it. Here's how you can actually make a change in your life. And I mean, to be honest, it's an Enneagram book that's not really about the Enneagram. Like, whether you like the Enneagram or not, like, in the process of writing the book, I kind of lay out um, the steps for any personal or spiritual growth journey by using the three-legged stool approach
Mm-hmm.
of practice, lineage, and community. These are the things that need to be in place in your life in order for any of this work to take root, uh, to create any sort of real or meaningful, tangible change.
Yeah, it's so good. And so yeah, so people may be surprised when they open the book and the table of contents. It's not divided into nine
No.
parts or nine chapters. It's these three parts: practice, lineage, and community, like you said, which I just love. And there is plenty of content directed to each type in a way that I think is really helpful, but it's more organically woven in instead of just these
Yeah,
these nine typologies. Because like you're saying, the point is, okay, you have that. There are lots of good books on the typologies. Now
like every book on
what?
the Enneagram is about that piece of the Enneagram. It's easy to
Right.
find.
Well, and I feel like sometimes people are like expected to write their own typology book first and then get to do like what you're doing with this book. And I love that this gets to be your first book. And I part of that I think is like you do so situate yourself in this lineage up front, in the narrative tradition and the other teachers that you speak about. So I just love it. And as I read through the book, prepping for today, I have like um, a, a thing or two to ask you about in each of those three
Yeah.
sections.
Yeah.
So I love this three-legged stool analogy. And so the first that you start with is practice, of course. And for people who are wondering, kind of, well, and you break that down further into the working with practices for the three centers of intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about like kind of where to start when working with each center of intelligence. So for the body triad, you were talking about starting with some sort of movement practice that needs to be unpatterned, conscious movement. Could you like give us an example of what that would be, or say a little more about what that is for folks who might want to work with the body center?
Yeah. Working with the body center, I tend to start there, and I talk about this in the book, right? That um, we from I'm a yoga therapist, so that's where a lot of this. Honestly, that's where a lot of this book comes from, is my experience as a yoga therapist,
Yeah.
especially the practice section, because that's kind of what we're all about, is like helping people develop practices, and we start with the body because it's the most accessible, right?
Mm.
Like, I don't know how many people sit down and they're like, I can't meditate. I can't do it. And I'm like, well, you can, you just probably aren't going about it in the most, helpful way, right? Like working with this very real, very quote unquote gross energy as opposed to subtle.
Yeah.
The body, uh, creates a lot of space for working with our hearts and with our minds. And, you know, I talk about movement being unpatterned and being like conscious and being aware of your movement. Any movement can be a practice. And I talk about that in the book, like how do we distinguish a movement as a practice? If you've never done yoga before, obviously I'm a yoga therapist. I'm going to say yoga is a great way to practice. Like that's a wonderful place to start. Things like Tai Chi, right? Things that we kind of have in our minds as physical, like contemplative practices, right? Like that's something that culturally we understand, like, oh yeah, yoga and Tai Chi, they have all this, kind of um, I don't know, cultural stuff around them that, like, well, yeah, we get that. Like, of course that's a practice. But so is walking
Mm-hmm.
or riding your bike or powerlifting, right? Like any kind of movement that you're doing. Dance is a big one. Dance is a huge practice
Yeah.
that a lot of people feel is more accessible, right? Like some people are like, I don't want to do yoga. I was like that. But right, like any kind of movement can be a practice if it has those pieces of like being unpatterned. It's not something you do in your daily life, right? It's something kind of
Right.
outside the norm. It's something you bring a lot of attention to, something that helps you to sharpen your bodily awareness,
Yeah.
right? Like anything that's helping to kind of develop that capacity within yourself to know what's happening in your body and to feel what's happening in your body, that's a body-centered practice.
Yeah, so good. And I love the space that you give and acknowledge that of the endless possibilities of what this could be for different types and different people. I mean, you mentioned like powerlifting or like you're climbing or bike riding,
Yeah.
that you do this part. And like I really found, and I missed this during COVID, but going back to gymnastics and doing like adult tumbling
Yeah.
was like huge for working with the body center for me, as a force. So um, let's go next to the heart, because kind of working with the body, like you said, can open us up to working more with the heart and the mind. And you talk about breath practice being a really good place to start for working with the heart center. So why is that, and how does that work?
Um, this is the place where people like often get stuck, right? And when I teach this stuff, at workshops and that sort of thing when I'm, explaining this. Like, people intuitively understand that to work with the body, you do movement. Like, and then people also kind of culturally understand to work with the mind, you do meditation. Got it. Great. Okay. But then when you talk to people about working with the heart, they're like, there's a lot of like furrowed brows and frustrated looks. And it starts to make sense. I always ask the question, and I even write it out in the book, like, what do you tell people to do when they're really upset? Take a deep breath. Right. And that's because we know, again, intuitively, that our breath directly affects our emotional experience. And I talk a lot about that in the book.
And through the nervous system.
Yeah, exactly.
You acknowledge, yeah.
Yeah, like the breath is what directly affects our nervous system. And yes, like movement practices do as well. But as far as like changing your state, as we would say in yoga therapy, right? Like your state of mind, your state of heart, breath work is the fastest way to do that because you're working directly with the nervous system. The diaphragm is one of those muscles that can run automatically, but can also be like consciously worked with, which makes it a really like unique muscle. And it's really fascinating. There's so many things that are very exciting about breath work and working with the heart. But one of the things that I like pinpoint is that when we talk about working with our type, our emotional reactivity is really the linchpin of our types. It's when we are reacting from an emotional place. And I don't just mean like, oh, if you're emotional, you're irrational. It's like, no, we react emotionally in 9 different ways. And that's kind of like our warning signal, right? Like, oh, your nervous system moves into, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whatever F words they, add on to there, right? And all the only options you have are to run your type, right? Like, and that's what your type is designed to be, is this, this kind of default software that can run when you don't have the capacity to do anything else.
Yeah.
And breath work literally helps to move your state from the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system by working with the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
Polyvagal theory and things like that. Like, this is how we can not only go back and work with trauma, basically, or traumatic memories that are resurfacing, but also to shift our experience in the moment through breath work. Yeah. So I think that it's one of the I also talk about how like going to therapy is also an emotional practice that we need. But going to therapy isn't necessarily going to help you change what's happening in the moment when your type has been triggered. Right. Breath work helps us to do that.
Right. Again, it's so practical.
Yeah.
So practical. So for the head, you talk about it being important to work with the habit of attention for the type. And I think we did a series recently on social media of the habits of attention for each of the types. So if people want to go back and check that out, please do. But, like you said, people are a little more familiar with meditation than maybe some of these other things, but specifically, because that's kind of what you talk about for working with habit of attention. But specifically, you said, I want to read you a quote from one of the pages that I just loved. So you're saying, our culture by and large has been sold the idea that meditation is reserved for the calmest and most serene among us, or even worse, only the neurotypical people. Which I love how expansive your language is in this book, and it is very much inclusive of differing abilities and neurodivergence. which I personally really appreciated. But yeah, how do we counter that? What we've kind of been sold about it.
Yeah. Um, you know, I think the biggest thing, and I talk about it in the book, right, is we have to adopt a better definition of what meditation is.
Mm.
So many people just assume that meditation is like having no thoughts. And that's impossible. Like, nobody has no thoughts. No meditator in the history of the world is just not having thoughts. That's not what meditation is designed to do. It's not designed to like empty or eradicate the mind or the intellectual function. It's meditation is designed to help you choose where you're placing your attention through
Yeah.
practicing placing your attention. I practiced centering prayer for years and years and years. And what they talk about is that it's, you know, having the like flood of thoughts or the monkey mind or whatever you want to call it, right, does not mean that you've had an unsuccessful meditation. It's simply, you know, what makes a meditation quote unquote successful is that you come back, right? It is a continual returning to this place that, you know, our bodies, hearts, minds are like not designed to stay in, right? Like we've developed these capacities in order to stay safe. Like we're scanning the horizon, we're, you know, creating imaginary, you know, like all of these functions of the mind. You know, that's just what the mind does. And there's no like moral judgment on those things, right? It only becomes a problem when we can't move outside of that.
Yeah.
And so we learn how to move outside of that through practice.
Yeah.
And practice doesn't mean quieting your mind or erasing your thoughts, but simply remembering you aren't your thoughts, right? Yeah. Through all different means of, you know, meditation. There are so many different styles. And sometimes meditation is just directing your thoughts to a certain phrase or like affirmation, or if you're using, you know, Sanskrit, like a mantra, or right, like there are so many different ways to meditate. You know, I think a more effective definition of what meditation really is, that I developed from one of my teachers, is just meditation is directed attention.
Yeah.
And you know, you direct your attention, it floats away, you bring it back. And you know, every time you're building that muscle, that ability to bring the attention back. You know, I you know, liken it to like weightlifting, right? Like if you just held dumbbells right here the whole time, you would never actually get any stronger, right? Because the movement, like you're just locking your muscles in a single place. It's this movement back and forth that actually creates the functional strength, you know, and creates the ability to direct our attention more gracefully, which is really where it's at, right? Like that allows us to stay balanced.
I love it. I hadn't heard that weightlifting illustration before. I realized in reading this book, like obviously you and I have been friends for a while and we get along and all of that, but I realized in reading this book that we've been formed by such similar things like sports and music and church and then the
Yeah,
Enneagram and yoga. And I'm like, oh, this is why. Like so many.
we're friends.
This is why. So that was fun, just like learning more. There is so much of your personal story in here too. And
Yeah.
I know that was a choice that maybe you didn't want to make, but
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
so grateful that you did.
I wanted to write a very like heady intellectual Enneagram book, and my editor was like, this is not gonna fly. And I was like, oh no, I have to like
Well, it was the right call, and thank you for being brave enough to do it. And I will tell
yeah.
you, like I know in theory, like that's a better way to write a book. You know, like if you want to connect with people. But just like real quick, like I had another book that came to me that I like kind of picked up like just to see what it was like while I was reading yours, and it was way more like heady theory, like, but it was kind of supposed to be, and I just was like, I don't know, and like set it aside, and I was like, I really want to get back to Abby's. So it works,
Thank
all
you.
to say.
Thank you. It was
It,
definitely a difficult thing to do. And that's probably where a lot of those really complicated feelings are coming from, is that like, oh, I did all this work and I really like the writing process was so and I was just kind of like rifling through my personal story and putting I put a lot of myself out there. And now knowing that like other people are going to see this, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try and forget all that stuff I put in there.
which is no small task for anyone, but certainly with your type, with being, dominant in type 8, there is a lot of instinct guarding against that kind of work, and it's just amazing that you've done it.
Amazing
So
and terrible.
lots of things at once are all true. So, okay, so that was a great look at just a snippet of this practice section of
Yeah.
the book. And if people do want to look at working more with those three centers, like I said, we have this program next month on May 20th with resilience and the three centers of intelligence. So there's going to be info about that on the narratives page. But let's move into lineage, which is is so countercultural in some ways,
Yeah.
and and so important. And so again, I'm just going to read a paragraph to you, and then we can talk about it. But you said in the lineage section that I ended up choosing the narrative Enneagram for two main reasons. First was that it was reputable, founded by two giants in the Enneagram world. It was clearly the real deal. But as I mentioned before, there are a lot of reputable schools. The other thing that helped me make the decision was that I resonated with the way they taught. It was clear to me that this was the specific flow I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to be a part of the lineage the narrative Enneagram is building, which is just beautiful. And I just wonder, obviously I have found my way into this lineage and flow as well, but what is it about the narrative way of teaching that has been so compelling to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole way the narrative teaches, right? Like I was like, it's the fact that uh, you are encouraged to listen to the type directly. It's not, and it's so much more experiential because not
Mm.
only are you listening to someone bare their soul to you, I mean, quite literally, like if you've been through the intensive or any of the narrative programs, um, it, you're seeing there, you're getting to be with other people and learn who they are. But you're also invited and encouraged to participate in that as well, right? So it wasn't like I just showed up at training and like watched things happen. Like I was also engaged and sharing. And um, well, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more in the community section,
Yeah.
but like it's there's something different that happens to the information when you're able to connect to people in that way.
Yeah.
Um, and I do believe that like the Enneagram is something that um, it is really sacred. We're talking about people's like innermost workings, and oftentimes when that becomes theory or when that becomes um, just information up on a screen or in a book, uh, we don't use it as well. It becomes way too easy to weaponize. it becomes way too easy for that information to not truly affect us in the way that
Yeah.
it needs to. It becomes way too easy just to pretend like you're not affected by it. Um,
Mm.
but you don't get to bypass that in the narrative. Like, you don't. You're there, and you're watching these things happen in the moment for people as they share, and then you are immediately involved in what's happening, and that changes how you use this information, right? Because it's not just information, like, it is a deeply felt and lived experience. And again, that allows us to move into this work more fully.
Yeah.
um, it's not just somebody standing up and talking about the types, although there are plenty of people who do that really, really well.
Yeah.
And to some extent, in smaller workshops and things like that, it's hard to get around it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
panels are an undertaking, and they are a huge thing. Like, at having to, facilitate panels for my certification, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a lot of work. It's so hard. Right? But in the intensive and in the ways that they, do their training, you the information becomes, it's weaved together with experience, which
Yeah.
allows you to change the way you use it, change the way it shows up in your life, change the way it affects you.
Yeah.
And that's why I chose narrative, and why I love this approach, is that um, it's so much more experiential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wholeheartedly concur with all of that, and I think part of what allows it to be that way is this kind of three-part path to integration that the narrative is based on, with this psychology, spirituality, and somatics,
Yeah.
which of course is the body work. And we've addressed breath work, about, we have kind of been talking about the somatic piece naturally.
Mhm.
But I think that is what um, part of what really makes it this unique experiential offering, because so much of it, of the Enneagram realm, it's like either focused on like mostly spirituality or mostly psychology, and this balance of the three, I think, is so valuable. And Abby's mentioned the intensive a couple of times, which is the first program in our core program. So it's like the first thing that you would attend as part of the narrative curriculum. And we do have one coming up, intensive part 1, on June 11th through 13th. So if anybody's curious about that, there's a link to that in our bio, and that registration is still open. So that's how how I started in the narrative, and how most people do.
Yeah.
That's 101.
Yeah. Definitely worth it. If you're looking for a deeper understanding of the types, and how the system works, thumbs up.
Agreed. Okay, so let's move into community, which we're kind of naturally doing anyway. I I love that you started basically the community section by saying that you were dreading writing that section
Yes.
the whole time, which like immediately just like put my guard down, because like I was dreading reading it.
But I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I know so many people who are just like, I hate this section. And I'm like, I know, I hated writing it.
And the way you wrote it didn't allow me to hate it, but I was dreading it as well. And I mean, more of my story. Intentional community had been such a huge part of my life and my identity for so long, and I really am in a season of having to let go of that, and to embrace more of what you call circumstantial community, and the gifts of that. But you just allowed so much room, because again, you talk about what community can offer us, which includes the friction that helps us to work through things. But you acknowledge that, like, we can grow and transform in community by staying and working through that friction, but also sometimes we grow, and it's right to remove ourselves from a situation where there is not, the ability or the willingness to work through what comes up when these types combine.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that, a whole lot. I'm gonna read one more piece to you, and we can expound on it. You say in this community section, like, we can't do any of this work well if we're not aware of how power and privilege play into our experiences. Because inevitably, the person with the least amount of privilege will experience the highest amount of friction in community and is most likely to experience real trauma, gaslighting, abuse, and so on. So that's just really diving in, but we don't, unfortunately, we don't have all day. But I think this acknowledgement of, how power and privilege play into all of our interactions, and in the room when we're learning and teaching the Enneagram, is so important. I don't even know if I have a question to follow up with that, other than, I mean, do you? I just wanted to highlight that as so important. I don't know. Does that bring anything else up for you?
Yeah, I think it's super important to acknowledge, right? Because I think so much of the abuse that's perpetrated in our intentional communities, which is the abuse, which is literally the reason why so many people are dreading this section, right? Like, why
Right. Yeah.
reading it, right? And there was also a lot of, there's a lot of things, similarly from like the lineage section as well, that like, if we don't acknowledge the power and the privilege that's at play in these situations, that's where this abuse is stemming from.
Yeah.
So often, I might go out on a limb and say every time.
Yeah.
Every time. And if we know that, and then we can work to acknowledge where we sit in this continuum of privilege and power, I really believe that it will transform the way that our communities function, right? Like,
Right.
it's so easy to ostracize the person who's complaining about whatever, right? But when we bring in the context of like, oh, this person clearly has less power and privilege than I do, so that is clearly affecting how I see the issues that they're bringing to the table, and why I might dismiss them as complaining or whining about something that it may really be a real issue for them.
Yeah.
And likewise, being able to see, the places that I hold power and privilege and the places where I don't, and to prepare myself, right, like, for what that like combination can bring to the table, right? It's this kind of personal practice, again going back to the beginning, that allows us to show up in community and be more effective, right? And actually like learn and grow. If we can see that, like, oh, this person is clearly, it lives more towards the margins than I do, their complaint, right? Their what they're bringing to the table needs to be paid attention to. Like, it's valuable information for how our community is running, and what our community could be doing better.
Yeah.
And without that acknowledgement, we're not going to see any real change.
Right.
And I also have to bring up that, like, the work that we're doing to acknowledge our power and privilege, especially as white people, because most of the Enneagram community is white. Like, overwhelming amount of people are white, and just an astronomical number are cisgendered, heterosexual, right? If we as an Enneagram community aren't willing to take the practices that we've learned in examining our type and apply them to the often even more difficult to see and understand issues of power and privilege, then there's really no point in doing this work at all.
Right.
Like, it's all or nothing.
Yeah. Well, and if power and privilege and just the whiteness of the cultural water that we swim in wasn't just so like default, unfortunately, I feel like the Enneagram sets us up perfectly to move past just
Yeah.
that typology into these other identities, like you're saying. I mean, like it can be a great foundation
Yeah.
for getting real about work that is so important, and that you and I have talked about for a long time, and that I'm so glad and grateful that the narrative is investing in through DEI and anti-racism training. And one of the things I've been thinking about, see if I can articulate this efficiently, is so I love obviously your work with queering the Enneagram, and people, and fortunately, like a number of people are starting to realize like that there's not enough diversity in the Enneagram community,
Yeah.
and acknowledging that. What kind of like feels weird to me or feels off to me sometimes is that it's like it's voiced as like, oh, we need to figure out how to be more welcoming or inclusive for these people who need the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Like it's like that
I
like
hate
white
that
savior-y thing.
so much.
And like that's well meaning, like people like the Enneagram can be helpful for lots of people, but it still feels like this place of power that posture is coming from. But what I've been thinking about is like, how does the representation of like more people, more diverse cultural identities like benefit the Enneagram?
Yeah.
Because like I just finished reading Brandy Carlisle's memoir Broken Horses, which is just blew me away. And she's queer, of course, and just has this amazing story. But she talked with Brene Brown about being a one on the Enneagram, which I wouldn't have guessed, but I see it. But I also see a lot of like the resource points, a lot of seven, a lot of four, maybe so. And so I'm like, what are we missing from these stories that aren't as represented? Because like I've never seen quite as an expansive or fluid expression of oneness as I did in her telling of her life, right? And so it's like our descriptions of the types cannot possibly be complete. There is just an expanse of range that like can't be in the literature yet because it's not represented, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's like we learn like the Enneagram. I think this is one of the big problems with the Enneagram community as a whole right now, is that like the Enneagram type is seen as this like either foundational piece of our personality that is kind of like unchanging, right? Or this kind of like overlay that affects everything but is unaffected.
Yeah.
And the reality is our type intersects with every other identity,
Everything.
right? Like
Yeah.
the intersectional approach to the Enneagram, while more difficult, a lot of times for people to like really grab hold of, mostly because we don't have the diversity in the community yet. But this intersectionality is what allows us to understand what type is more effectively. Like,
Yeah.
how much of type, how much of what we assume is type is actually culturally influenced for males, or for people assigned female at birth, or people who are white, or people who are financially privileged, or people who are able-bodied or neurotypical, right? Like,
Yeah.
type shifts in in conjunction with these identities. And we need to bring more people together to hear, right, in the very narrative tradition, right? We need
Right.
to hear their stories of how
Yes.
they relate to this. Because without that, the Enneagram becomes too static to be helpful.
Yes.
Um, and that's one of the things that so many people talk about loving about the Enneagram is that it's dynamic, right?
Yes.
And it is even dynamic from person to person. The way that I play out my unconscious, motivations is deeply affected by my queerness, by my transness, by my whiteness, by my able-bodiedness, right? Even by, being middle class, right? Like, all of these
Mm.
things play into how this manifests. And in order for us to more effectively work with type, we have to understand what it is. And we can't do that if the only descriptions of type come from this very extremely limited cultural perspective. And
Right.
so that's why we need, like, everyone in the community needs more voices to be brought in so that we can do our work better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm hopeful, because again, I think this narrative way of teaching that you've described, and that we've experienced kind of is set up to make that possible. Again, listening to the embodied life experience of the type, but of the type in all of these different bodies and identities. And so there's a long way to go, but I'm excited that we're hopefully getting closer.
Yeah.
Um,
It's been fun to watch and be in the community as this has become a more apparent need.
mhm.
Um, you know, I mean, like, I'm hesitant to use this word, but I feel proud seeing
Mm,
how people in the community have stepped up, to really engage with this work. Obviously, there is still so far to go, and there's a lot of work to be done. But I see people honestly and openly engaging with it, and I've said this on many occasions. If the Enneagram community can't do this work, it's impossible for everyone. Like,
yeah,
we have the best tools for this work. We have the most practice at this kind of work. If we can't do it, there is, like, no hope. Uh,
yeah,
and so we need to step up and do it.
yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree, and I love, you really in the book, um, took care to speak against the heaviness, or the like no pain no gain thing that can be part of your type, and certainly part of my type, and you do offer so much hope and so much joy, and the hope and joy that can be a part of this work in our lives, and to the point of, like, you in your conclusion, remind us, which I certainly need a reminder of often, that joy is the secret ingredient in making all our personal and spiritual work create the change we want to see in our lives and in our world. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that. We're close to time,
Yeah.
so
It doesn't feel
which
like it.
no, 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 no. I fully expected the hardest part of this would be keeping it to under an hour.
Yeah.
Um, so we're that is proving true. So as promised, let's let folks know how to participate in this giveaway. Because if you didn't hear it earlier, we're having two winners. Both get a signed copy of Abby's book, The Conscious Enneagram. Woo, woo, woo. And one winner will get a free annual membership to the Narrative Enneagram community. The other will get free admission to an event we have next month on resilience and the three centers of intelligence. And the way to participate is this. So we're going to post this video in our feed with this information. So we'll write it down too. But like this video post, Follow both Conscious Enneagram and Narrative Enneagram, and tag a friend in the comments or share in your stories. And if you do multiple tags or multiple shares, those will be extra entries.
Yeah.
So lots of chances to participate. We're gonna announce the winner on Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Central, and can't wait to do that and see all your friends and sharing, and hopefully get this out to as many people as possible. So, of course, have to plug Abby's book. If you don't win it, please buy it if you haven't already.
Yeah.
And how do you want people to do that, Abby? I'm sure you have a link in your bio.
Yeah, a link in my bio that goes directly to my publisher, and you can pre-order directly from them. But the best way to do it is to get a hold of your local bookstore and order it through them. They'll be able to get it pretty quickly, but ordering through a local bookstore is better, one, because your money stays in your community, but also because when local bookstores, when there's a new book coming out, they may or may not have any interest in carrying it. But if you order it from them, they will get you a copy, and they will often get a few copies to also put on the shelves, assuming that if somebody's ordering this, other people will probably also want it. And so that helps the book's visibility, as well as helps your local bookstore and helps your community. And so that is the absolute best way. Go online, call your local bookstore, whatever it takes, go to their website. A lot of them will allow you to order books online that they don't have stocked in store. And so you can do it that way. If all else fails, go to bookpeople.com and order it from them. They'll ship it all over the world. Also check out Black Pearl Books. That's another Austin-based but also Black-owned bookstore.
Nice.
And bookshop.org is another great organization, another great website if you're having trouble locating your local bookstore. So please shop local as best you can. I think Amazon's the devil. So, I mean, like, if you have to buy it through them, fine. But it would definitely be a bonus for everyone involved if you could order it through your local bookstore. So
yes, co-sign for sure. So links to that and Abby's profile, links to the events that we've mentioned in the narrative link and profile. There's also just a free Enneagram guide that you can download there if you do want just like a basic description of the 9 types. We should say though that there's also an appendix in your book that has all of that basic type stuff. I'm amazed at how much you fit in. Like it's really a great. I'm like, so all of the books could have been that length. Like, you've proven that it can be done.
Yes.
So thank you for talking with me, friend. We'll have to do this again in some way, shape, or form. But congratulations on the good work that you have done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye, Abby.
Awesome. Bye, y'all.